When surging inflation runs head-on into a contracting housing market, the entire economic machine seizes up and grinds to a halt. In May 2026, headline PCE inflation spiked to a 3-year high. At the same time, new home sales plummeted to their second lowest level in nearly 4 years. This divergence in the data creates a trilemma that is actively paralyzing the Federal Reserve's interest rate policy. To understand the gridlock, we will first break down the specific drivers keeping the PCE inflation print so stubbornly elevated. Next, we will deconstruct a statistical disconnect hiding inside the housing market's months of supply metric. Finally, we will evaluate how the shifting landscape of gig labor is injecting hidden friction into employment data. Analyzing how these 3 distinct pillars interact clarifies the internal logic of the Fed's decision-making for the rest of the year. This chart shows personal consumption expenditures for May 2026. The top graph tracks headline PCE year over year, showing annual inflation climbing to 4.1%, its highest level since April 2023. To see the underlying trend, we have to strip out volatile food and energy prices. On the lower graph, core PCE inflation edged up to 3.4%. Short-term price stickiness is persisting across the board, with headline rising 0.4% and core rising 0.3% month over month. That 3.4% annual core reading is the highest level recorded since October 2023. This leaves inflation running significantly higher than the Federal Reserve's 2% target mandate. A primary driver of this stickiness is ongoing geopolitical tension in the Middle East, which continues to squeeze global supply chains. Consumer spending also remains elevated, supported by headline labor market data that has consistently come in stronger than economists anticipated. There is a major counterindicator on the horizon. Oil prices have declined considerably since May, which may alleviate energy-related inflation in upcoming reports. However, with core inflation stuck well above that 2% target, the Fed has left interest rates unchanged at every meeting this year. As long as these figures remain elevated, the case for a rate cut is difficult to justify. The Fed's prolonged rate pause means mortgage rates stay high, creating a deeply hostile environment for retail homebuyers. This chart tracks new home sales for May 2026. The top graph shows the result of those high rates, an annualized sales pace dropping to 580,000 homes, a 7.3% drop from the previous month. Because this metric tracks signed purchase contracts, it reflects buyers actively walking away from the market in real time during the month of May. Yet, despite plunging sales, national headline metrics show a seemingly healthy supply. Look at the lower graph, 496,000 new homes for sale, or a 10.3-month supply. This highlights a structural disconnect. The headline availability of homes doesn't reflect the actual options available for someone looking to move in today. When we deconstruct those 496,000 homes, we find that 117,000 of them have not even broken ground yet. Another 261,000 properties are currently under construction and are still months away from being livable. Calculating the true available inventory reveals a tight bottleneck. Only 118,000 completed homes are actually ready for immediate occupancy. This constraint forces the remaining active buyers to compete fiercely over a tiny fraction of the total supply. This explains why median new home prices still managed to rise 2.0% month over month, even as the total volume of sales collapsed. The third pillar of the Fed's trilemma involves economic output and the friction appearing in the labor market. Economic growth appears stable on the surface, with the final estimate for first quarter 2026 GDP showing an annualized expansion of 2.1%. However, that growth was heavily supported by corporate investments in artificial intelligence infrastructure, rather than broad consumer expansion. Looking at the labor market, initial jobless claims also look healthy, having declined to 215,000. The anomaly emerges in the continuing jobless claims data, which increased significantly to 1.821 million. Reconciling these two numbers requires looking at how displaced workers are navigating the current job market. Many workers are bypassing traditional initial unemployment filings by immediately taking temporary freelance, gig, or contract roles. But the rising continuing claims data proves that for those already in the system, finding traditional full-time employment is taking significantly longer. This suggests that standard economic models may be misinterpreting temporary gig work as permanent strength, masking structural frictions that will eventually impact consumer spending. The Federal Reserve is bound by a dual mandate, balancing stable prices with a functioning job market. When we place the 3.4% core PCE data against a constrained housing supply and softening labor metrics, the macro reality becomes clear. This creates a policy stalemate. Inflation is currently too high to justify a cut, but the underlying housing and labor frictions suggest that easing is necessary to prevent a deeper economic freeze. Until the Fed moves, the housing market will likely remain stuck in this low-volume, high-price equilibrium. Looking ahead, upcoming non-farm payroll data and home price indices are the next binary triggers that could finally break this gridlock. In a market characterized by headline illusions, tracking subsurface metrics like completed inventory and continuing claims is the only way to accurately anticipate the Federal Reserve's eventual pivot.